All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast, where we trust the niggle and we tell the truth. My name is Candice Smiley, and I'm your host. My guest today has some things we're going to talk about, and they're important things to talk about. And so she's part of our ongoing series around women and empowerment and some of those things that we need to be drawing awareness to. So go grab yourself your cup of tea, sit back, and be ready to hear some stuff. Now, I am going to let you share your bio right from the beginning, how you got here, what's passionate, what's on your mind and your heart. I'm just going to hand the call straight over to you.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to be here, Candice, and welcome everybody. My name is Ruth Ann Weeks. I am a cultural change strategist and principal consultant at Harmony in the Workplace. I'm very passionate about helping business and industry create organizations where everybody wins, where people work in harmony towards a shared goal. Psychological safety is in play, so psychological safety is in play, so improvements are consistently made and people are free and authentic to bring their best whole selves to work. Innovation reigns, and it's a beautiful thing. Some of the areas I am passionate about helping to raise awareness and spread the word on are workplace bullying, sexual harassment in the workplace, and domestic violence as it can affect the workplace, which is what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah. Well, and thank you so much for bringing your expertise to the conversation today. I had this idea to do the women empowerment issue because of my own challenges recently going through a divorce, which has had some significant challenges I didn't really anticipate when I sort of knew that the relationship needed to end. And I feel as if I had experienced some financial abuse and certainly some, emotional, and it's been challenging. But then, was alerted to the fact that we've seen a rise in violence against women and children throughout the pandemic. And this was something I'd heard whispers of, when the pandemic started, and certainly as it's continued. And I wanted to engage with people who are in the arena and have been in the arena for a while. So I guess share with me, you've building programs and stuff like that. What does that look like? And what are you sort of seeing as the landscape is, as we talked about before we hit the record button, the landscape is changing and changing rapidly. And there's certainly positives, but there's also some negatives that have come from that.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I believe that the landscape was shifting. We were in a social up level prior to the pandemic. As people are just less willing to put up with toxic work environments, they're less willing to put up with the toxic status quo. They're seeking better workers that are entering the workforce. Millennials and Gen Z that are now entering the workforce are scrutinizing employers. They want to work for employers that care about them and support them and care about the things that they care about. And COVID has done nothing but absolutely accelerate that shift. It's given everyone on the planet cause to pause and really reflect values that are important to them and reevaluate, what they want to do and what they want to prioritize. And when it comes to violence against women, what the pandemic has done is it's isolated even further those most vulnerable populations. There are violence or risk factors, escalation risk factors that are in play right now. And when it comes to domestic violence and intimate partner violence, first of all, domestic violence is when a person is being abused by someone who they are having or have had an intimate relationship with. They don't necessarily need to be living together for that to come into play. As you probably discovered during your divorce, you saw a side of your partner that maybe you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
As power and control dynamics change,
Mm-hmm.
it ramps up, and the most dangerous time actually is when the relationship is ending.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the COVID disruption and people being more and more isolated and being together, and what's happened is the violence has absolutely escalated. Sometimes that shows up in reported numbers, and sometimes it doesn't, because when when the abused person is in an environment where they're very closely monitored, they may not have that freedom to make that phone call or to even do that web search and find out what types of supports are available. Their partner may be drinking or drugging excessively, particularly if they've lost their job and are home more. And what happens when like I mentioned, it's a power and control dynamic. So when the person loses any sort of control or esteem that they may have received from their job, it ramps up in the areas that they can control, and they even tighten that control more and more. So it's a very sad situation when we're seeing women and children cloistered in close quarters with very little reprieve and opportunity for reprieve with someone who is abusing them. And I do want to say that men can and do experience workplace or abuse, domestic violence. Men can and do experience workplace violence and domestic violence. However, it is more predominantly a women's issue. 70% of the time, more often, it's women that are being abused. And, the potential for violence is absolutely escalating. Strangulation is more and more common now, and the abusive partner will strangle until their target passes out. It can lead to chronic problems with swallowing and that type of thing. Every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. It's a very prevalent issue. And of course, my expertise, I worked in the human service sector for 7 years and got very well versed in the types of issues that humans face and that people deal with. And domestic violence was one of the areas that I was really drawn to, particularly because it's so prevalent. But what really breaks my heart is that in Alberta alone, and I'm not sure where your readership and your listeners are from, but in Alberta alone, and I would imagine that most Canadian provinces are quite similar per capita, 22,000 women and children are turned away from safe houses every year. And it breaks my heart that, and they're actually people that want to leave and go to seek safety. And there's no safety for them. They can't find a safe place. There's not enough space. So since the inception of my business, Harmony in the Workplace, in 2016, I've actually made it part of my corporate social responsibility. A percentage of every dollar earned in that business goes to support domestic violence prevention initiatives. Some of the recipients of that have been Winhouse. For the first time in 30 years, Alberta opened their first women's shelter in Sturgeon County, the Jessica Martel Memorial Foundation. Jessica was a woman who was murdered by her intimate partner as she was making plans to leave. And she never got out. And her mother and some of her family and some very passionate and compassionate people set about building a shelter and creating a safe house as Jessica's legacy. So it was nice to be a part of that, and I continue to look for opportunities to serve that area, and with the big vision goal of creating second stage housing to help women and children stay out of abusive relationships. Often to leave an abusive relationship is to choose poverty. And if we can help them with the second stage stuff, hopefully that'll keep more of them safe and from returning to abusive environments.
Wow. This is a sobering conversation, and I appreciate you engaging with me in it. I had no idea the numbers were that high. There's that actually hits me quite hard. I know how challenging it was for me to decide to leave, and I had great support, some places to go, and had a career that moved well with me. But I know that for many that's not the case, right? And they're very tied up financially. But there were certainly a few very, 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 very lean years after making that decision to go. And then you add on top of that, the challenges of attempting to pay for lawyers and stuff like that. There's still some ongoing challenge, there. So Ooh, what is a person to do if they're listening to this and they're thinking, "Wow, I'd like to get involved. How can we be making a difference in this particular issue right now?"
I think the biggest thing people can do is to become aware, be educated. There's all kinds of really great websites with really great resources. There's a
Mhm.
lot of really terrific people working in the arena and doing a lot of really good work. Um, and there's lots of places to get educated. When it comes to the workplace, let's celebrate the fact, first of all, that it is built into occupational health and safety legislation in much of Canada, if not, the rest of the world. Um, Employers are required to provide leave for those that they come to know are experiencing domestic abuse to get out of their situation if they want to, or otherwise seek supports around that, maybe to go to agencies or seek medical help and attention to deal with the stress of that. Um, a lot of Canadian provinces mandate 3 to 5 days of paid leave. Alberta does not provide any paid leave under the legal framework, but they do have to provide up to 10 days of leave for someone to get help related to domestic abuse they're experiencing. It's been added to the occupational health and safety legislation in 2018, for the first time in over 40 years, the Alberta occupational health and safety legislation was overhauled to add domestic violence. And what that means, and again, it's in many Canadian provinces, what that means is that employers, once they come to find out, or it comes to be known to them that someone in their workplace is experiencing domestic violence and may not feel safe, or someone is perpetrating domestic abuse using company time and resources, they're obligated to address that. And what does that look like? It's always better to have a proactive plan than be reactive. I heard of one employer who found out that someone working for him was feeling unsafe related to domestic abuse, and without a plan and without any sort of prepared response, what he did was he hired a security guard to stand beside her desk for 3 weeks. And was she safe? And kudos to the guy for doing something. He did keep her safe. She was safe. Was it comfortable for her? Probably not. Was it probably a very boring job for the security guard? Most likely. And it was probably very, very expensive, where another response might have been to move her to another location where her abusive partner might not know exactly where to find her. There's other things that can be done if there's a workplace that doesn't have every visitor sign in and that point of contact. They could do that, maybe put gates on the parking lots or something. Just to be proactive, just to keep people safe at work, not necessarily related just to domestic violence, but just limiting access and keeping people safe at work and keeping people from being isolated and, checking in. And I think we really need to talk about how to do that strategically through distance. So many people are working from home now. You have to be very, very intentional about those check-ins. And when it comes to domestic abuse, or someone experiencing domestic abuse, you have to be very, very careful about how you approach that, because you can actually put them in danger. You can't necessarily have that verbal conversation. A lot of times, particularly if the abusive partner is also in the home, actions are very closely monitored. They're listening in on meetings. They're maybe even checking emails or text messages that come in. So people have to be very, very careful about how they respond. But that doesn't mean that the employer and that person's immediate supervisor can't be supportive. That might mean just, being very intentional about checking in every day, even if it's just under the guises of just checking in, and you never talk about the abuse that's occurring, just to make sure that that person is safe, that they know that there's a caring adult and a caring person that's looking out for them, that is a safe place for them. Um, you know, when it comes to domestic violence, particularly in the workplace, training is so important because there's such a stigma around reporting. No one wants to be seen as weak or stupid. And without training on the really complex issues, there's a whole list of ways abuse can occur. There's a whole list of reasons why people may not choose to leave the abuse that's occurring. And, without that training, people are less likely to report that it's occurring. And you can't help keep someone safe when you don't know that they're experiencing it. But if someone, is working for an organization where everybody in the workplace has been trained, and you don't want to just necessarily, train a core group, you want to train everybody, even if you suspect that there is a person in your workplace that is experiencing domestic abuse, train everybody. And then they'll also obviously be included in that. And I think a lot of times, people in those kind of cloistering relationships may not even realize what's happening to them is abuse. There's an isolation factor. Someone will isolate their partner. They'll become resentful of their other relationships. They'll start to monitor their whereabouts and really expect immediate response to calls and texts, things like that. They'll isolate people from their family, from their friends, and it happens gradually over time, but there are red flags. And once people get training and education, they can really just help keep people safe. And it might reveal to someone that, their partner is not just a control freak, they're actually an abusive spouse. And it may help them navigate and make decisions on, how they want to proceed.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be honest, it's really good to know. I didn't know that, that employers had a responsibility, which is I'm learning every day. So thank you for sharing that and the different opportunities and how much support is actually there. I love that idea of sharing or training everybody, right? That way that person doesn't feel singled out and they can have that awareness. Because I think that's such a key piece, right? It certainly was for me to be like, oh, that is abuse. I'd never thought of it that way. There's a lot of blame and gaslighting going on, so it was so subtle. I didn't see it coming, right? So
Yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons why I've been passionate about sharing this is that we don't know what we don't know, and really smart, intelligent, beautiful, people can end up there. And I know that for me, that was a part of it is I was like, how did I end up here? Didn't I know better? And just getting over those internal dialogues were in my way for reaching out for support and saying, I think I'm in trouble. Um, right. So afraid of the shame or the questions of, well, why and how come, right? Rather than that there's some support. So let's introduce you to them. So,
absolutely. And that response can make such a difference. There is shame. It's unwarranted and it's undeserved. But like you said, it's like, how did I find myself here? But it's an issue that crosses all socioeconomic barriers.
mhm,
There is no group that is immune.
mhm,
There's no demographic that is immune. And what happens when everybody is trained, the person experiencing the abuse may not disclose, but if they're trained on those risk escalation factors, when the relationship is ending, when there's an emergency protection order in place, when there's an economic downturn or a layoff, or their partner is drinking and drugging to excess, and those risk escalation factors are in play, if they know that their employer is trained to understand the issues and they're not going to be judged as weak or stupid, they're more likely to report
yeah,
when those escalation factors come into play, and to help keep everybody at work safe. It's not just about them at that point, it's about keeping everybody, their coworkers safe as well for potential violence.
Yeah, well, and that's what a proactive approach for employers to take, right? Knowing that people may not be speaking about that, especially right now, while the pandemic is on, and knowing there's an escalation in domestic violence, regardless of, the gender it's coming at. That training and awareness seems even more important now, so that people have the tools without being singled out and creating a more dangerous situation for them. So,
Absolutely. And
go ahead.
industry best practice also means that employers should be looking at other supporting policies and procedures as well. Perpetrators have jobs too, right? So not only do you have the training and a zero tolerance of perpetrating abuse while at work, regardless of where the target is, but you include things like transportation policy so that company vehicles can't be used to stalk or harass anyone.
Mhm.
So that company, like an IT policy considerations as well, so that cell phones and company computers and laptops can't be used to harass or perpetrate violence.
Mm.
Social media policies, communication policies, so that, if someone at work is experiencing an abusive situation, that there's no gossip and there's no, there's respectful workplace around that. And just knowledge is power, and just that proactive approach. I just can't stress enough how important that is in keeping people safe.
Okay. So this is a company you started in 2016. Was there a lead up for this? Sort of an impetus that got you starting something like this to support employers and harmony in the workplace?
Yes, I found myself unexpectedly unemployed, having been bullied out of my
No.
previous position. I was a director in middle management director in a
Mm.
nonprofit, and it was a bad fit. Just a very authoritative culture,
Mm.
toxic workplace. I just didn't fit in well, and one of the peer directors um, didn't like me, didn't trust me, never took the time to get to know me, made lots of assumptions about me.
Mm.
And basically, the type of bullying I experienced was the covert, behind the scenes, behind closed doors,
Mhm.
disparaging of my character. I didn't do anything to deserve losing my job, but within 3 months, I got let go.
Mm.
Um, and, I was devastated. I was relieved because I knew it wasn't a good fit. It was affecting my mental health, which was affecting my physical health. So
Mhm.
much of the illness and injury, internal injury that we experience is related to what's happening in our minds and
Yeah.
our stress. And I had an autoimmune disease that had been dormant for years and flared in that
Mm.
toxic work environment as I was trying to ruminate and think my way out of it and fit in better. But yeah, so, as with many, many life-changing things, they're born from adversity. And I spent a lot of that. I got let go in October, and I spent a lot of that long Canadian winter practicing rudimentary self-care and just doing a lot of reflecting. Um, but it was a really good fit with my human resource management education, and the time I spent in human services. It just seemed like a really good marrying of skills to bring the human service side to human resource management. And it's been needed for a long time. People don't check their baggage at the door when they come to work. We are complete, and we need to be in psychologically safe environments where we're free and encouraged to bring our whole selves to work. And we're there because there's a job that needs to be done. The work still needs to be done, but there's a way that it can be done, embracing people in their wholeness and holding space for them to feel what they feel and to experience what they experience on a human level. And leadership is changing, and the soft skills in leadership, like empathy, authenticity, are very much in demand, and the leaders and organizations that can get it right will be the talent takers in the 21st century. As I said, those job seekers are being more and more scrutinizing of where they want to work and the types of people they want to work for and the types of people they want to work with.
Wow. Well, this has been incredibly both humbling and encouraging at the same time to hear, well, to hear that how big the issue is, but that there is things that is being done, and this shifting of leadership, which you had alluded to, before we started the recorded part of the call, that, leaderships had been changing for a while. And I agree with you on that end. And that COVID certainly has sort of sped that up, in terms of a pause. I know that for myself, there was a huge pause, and the pause allowed me to let go of what was no longer serving me and to shift and refocus. And that's changed, the course of my life, how much more so for, other people who had paused in jobs and relationships and other such things. I'd love to just open up the floor if there's anything else you wanted to share or resources you wanted to leave us with. This has been incredibly enlightening. And so I just want to give you that space to make sure that you've been able to share all that's on your mind and your heart today.
Well, thank you, Candice. One thing I do want to share, and I'm not sure how widely known it is, but I have been including it every time I speak. I'm not sure, is this just going to be an audio that you share, or is there going to be
Audio
video?
and video.
Okay, so this is a signal for a cry for help. It is nonverbal. So I'm going to describe it as well for the audio. So you just hold your palm up to the screen, put your thumb inside of your palm, and then just close your fingers over that. So create that fist. And that is a non-verbal cue for help. And it's very intentional. It's not something that we do naturally. So yeah, palm to the screen, thumb inside the palm, and then the fingers come down and close a fist around that thumb. And that is a cry for help. And if you ever see that or in a video call and you see that, call 911, because that person is experiencing a situation where they need help, and that is a cry for help. And I haven't seen them, but I've heard that they're showing up on television commercials. I think this originated in the UK, and even children in abusive situations sometimes are using it. So it's just great to share that awareness. And one of the other things I'd just love to share is an event I have coming up at the end of May 27th, 2021. It's a virtual event. It was supposed to have been live in May of 2020, but here we are. And rather than postpone again, we're going ahead. And it is a workplace psychological safety symposium, critical conversations. And I have a lineup of really dynamic speakers, and we're going to unpack psychological safety and what that means. It's also legislated in many parts of the country and different parts of the world. And what that means is you create that environment where people get to bring their whole selves to work. And a lot of employers really want to do it, but they're not always sure how to get started. So I'm very passionate about raising awareness about that and helping people to get started on that and bringing that in and create those transformations within their organizational cultures and help keep people safe at work. So you can go to my website, www.harmonyintheworkplace.com, on the events tab to get tickets for that, or just look it up on Eventbrite, Workplace Psychological Safety Symposium. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it sort of has what we're striving for in the title. And the other thing I just want to leave you with is, now is not the time to play small. Now is the time for leaders to step up and to step into their truth in providing support and providing care and attention to one another. And sometimes, that's just taking care of yourself and getting yourself out of bed every day, eating, taking care of your pets, getting the sun on your face. Sometimes that's checking in on a neighbor. Sometimes it's picking up the phone and calling someone who is living alone. And sometimes, it's just taking care of your family and reaching out in a bigger way, depending on the day and your calling. but I just encourage people to reflect and to act. And you can't ever do anyone more harm by asking how they're doing, or maybe even saying that you're worried about their mental health. You're never going to cause anyone to harm themselves. And this COVID disruption has brought out the worst in people, and it's brought out the best in people. And I just really encourage everybody to do what they can where they are every day with what they have.
Wow, powerful words to wrap up an equally powerful call. Thank you for sharing so candidly and clearly, both the situation as it is and what's being done, and where someone can go to understand more and make change. I think that is so um, significant. So thank you so much for sharing that and sharing space with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Candice. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. To my listeners, this was a big one. But if you know of someone who needs to hear this, share it, like, comment. I think it's really important. The more of this information that gets out there, the more awareness there is. And if nothing else, today I feel like I'm walking away that there is real power in awareness and being able to talk about these things openly in multiple places and spaces so that the person who needs to hear it hears it at the moment they need to hear it in a way that still keeps them safe. So, like, comment, share, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And for the rest of you, I will catch you on the flip side.
Hey, it's Candice. I hope you're really enjoying the show. I know I certainly am. I want to give a big shout out to one of the products that I absolutely love using. So this is 36-year-old skin, and I am in love with it. Yes, I am wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation. I'm wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, but in general, I want to go like really, really close. This is my skin. Phenomenal, right? So I recently started using a product called BioCell. BioCell is liquid collagen. Now, there's a lot of buzz about collagen right now, but you want to find one that mirrors closest the human kind of collagen. I was super impressed with this particular collagen. This is made with only the sternums of chickens. So that's the, the sternum bone of chickens in a place that has already ethically and humanely taken care of these chickens. And so we're basically using a part of the chicken that would normally just disappear and be used for other things. I have not gotten into the collagen world before now, mostly because I know that a lot of the collagens out there, especially the powdered collagen, they have things like cow hooves and pig hooves and noses, and I just wasn't interested in putting that sort of thing in my body. I do try to live a more plant-based lifestyle. This is one of the few products that I allow to have animal in it, but I absolutely love it. I'm also really impressed with the company behind it. They're a values-driven company, and if you know from watching any of my shows, values matter to me. They've got a number of values. One, to be disruptive in the industry, and you know me, I like to be a little bit irreverent and go against the grain once in a while. I also really love that one of their values is humility and compassion, because those are huge and important to me. So if you're looking for a place to spend your money, and no, it's not an arm and a leg, no, it's not an MLM, this is affiliate marketing, which means if you did decide to purchase this product, yes, I would in fact get a small commission, which has nothing to do with your products or your purchase or the price point on the product, to be honest with you. It is simply 10 to 36% for me, depending on how many of this awesome product that I get a chance to move. Also, I'm paid daily, which I think is pretty amazing. So if you're somebody who's looking for some collagen and you just want to be our customer, I have got a $10 code. Drop a link or a comment below, or feel free to message me and I will share with you my link so that you can get $10 off of your first order. If you are somebody who's thinking, hey, I would like to get some product and also like to break into the affiliate game, that's a passion for me. I love teaching women and men, but mostly women, how to master the affiliate game. Once you learn how to do it with one company, you can do it with anything else. So I hope that you're enjoying the show, and without any further ado, back to the show.